There's a ritual most people perform every morning without realizing it's a ritual at all. They reach for their phone before their eyes fully open. They consume the world's chaos before they've even remembered who they are. But here's what they don't know. The first voice you listen to each day becomes your guide. And if it's not God's voice, something else is leading you. Something that knows exactly how to keep you distracted, drained, and spiritually blind. What if I told you the enemy's greatest victory happens in the first 15 minutes of your day? Picture a castle under siege. The enemy doesn't attack at noon when the guards are alert and the sun is high. No, they attack at dawn when the gates are still closed and the watchmen are drowsy. That's exactly what happens to your soul every morning. The moment you wake up, you're in the most spiritually vulnerable state you'll be in all day. Your mind is soft, unguarded, impressionable. And whatever enters that space first doesn't just influence your morning, it sets the frequency for your entire existence until you sleep again. Most people hand that sacred moment to their notifications, to news designed to trigger fear, to social media engineered to make them feel less than. They're inviting the world's voice into the throne room of their consciousness before they've even acknowledged the king. But there's an ancient secret the enemy desperately wants hidden from you. God is waiting in the morning silence, not waiting to judge you, not keeping a list of yesterday's failures. He's waiting to speak direction over the chaos you're about to face, waiting to remind you who you actually are before the world tells you who you're supposed to be. When you meet God first, something shifts in the invisible realm. It's like turning on a light in a room full of shadows. Suddenly, everything trying to confuse you loses its power. The anxiety that was waiting to ambush you at 9 a.m. It has nowhere to attach. The spiraling thoughts that usually control your afternoon, they can't find their grip. Here's what nobody talks about. Your morning meeting with God isn't about being religious. It's about being strategic. The enemy knows that if he can steal your morning, he can steal your momentum. If he can flood your mind with his narrative before God speaks his truth, then you'll spend the entire day reacting instead of creating, defending instead of advancing, surviving instead of thriving. Think about a GPS. If you enter the wrong starting location, every direction it gives you will be off, even if the destination is correct. Your morning is your starting location. Get that wrong, and everything else gets complicated. When you meet God first, you're not just praying, you're calibrating. You're allowing divine intelligence to download the strategy you need before the battle even begins. You're letting his peace guard your mind before the enemy's panic can breach it. I've watched people transform their entire lives by changing just one thing. They stopped checking their phone and started checking in with heaven. They stopped asking the world what to think and started asking God what to see. And here's the mystery. When you consistently meet him first, he starts revealing things before they happen. Warnings about people you need to distance from. Green lights about opportunities you should take. Clarity about decisions that would have tormented you for weeks. It's not magic, it's alignment. You're sensing your frequency with the one who sees every move on the board before the game even starts. The world will always be screaming for your attention. The enemy will always have a crisis ready to consume your focus. But God speaks in the stillness before the noise begins. And those who hear him first, they walk differently. They move with a confidence that looks like peace. They navigate chaos like they have a map no one else can see, because they do. Think of your mind like a radio station. When you wake up, you're at zero frequency, neutral, open, receptive. The first signal you tune into doesn't just play in the background, it literally sets the channel for your entire day. This is why the enemy fights so hard for your morning. He knows that whoever gets your attention first gets your energy, your emotions, and ultimately your decisions. When you grab your phone before you pray, you're essentially saying, "World, tell me how to feel today." And the world is brutal. It will feed you fear through the news, comparison through social media, and urgency through 100 notifications that make you feel like you're already behind before you've even started. But when you meet God first, something completely different happens. His voice carries a frequency of peace, purpose, and clarity. It's not loud or demanding, it's anchoring. When you tune into that frequency first, everything else that tries to disturb you throughout the day has to fight against an established signal. And here's the key: a strong signal can't be easily overridden. Your morning isn't just about reading a Bible verse or saying a quick prayer. It's about establishing spiritual authority over your day. It's about declaring, before I hear what the world has to say, I need to hear what heaven is saying. This single decision creates a protective barrier around your mind. The anxieties still come, the challenges still arrive, but they don't have the same power because you didn't give them first access. You gave that to God. And whoever speaks first becomes the voice you trust most when everything else gets loud. Choose wisely. There's a reason ancient mystics, prophets, and spiritually awakened people throughout history all shared one practice. They met God in the early silence, not because they were more disciplined, but because they understood something profound. God's presence is most accessible in stillness, before the world wakes up and starts making demands. The enemy operates in noise. He thrives in distraction, confusion, and constant motion. His strategy is simple: keep you so busy, so mentally cluttered, so emotionally reactive that you never have a quiet moment to hear what God is actually saying. Because if you heard God clearly, you'd stop falling for the enemy's lies. You'd stop chasing things that drain you. You'd stop agreeing with thoughts that weren't even yours to begin with. When you meet God in that sacred morning silence, you're not just spending time with Him, you're breaking every chain the enemy tried to wrap around your mind while you slept. You're dismantling fear before it becomes anxiety. You're intercepting doubt before it becomes paralysis. You're catching the enemy's narrative before it becomes your internal dialogue. Here's what's powerful: the enemy loses his grip the moment you stop trying to figure everything out on your own and start listening to the one who already knows. In that silence, God doesn't just comfort you, He reveals. He shows you the trap before you walk into it. He gives you words for the conversation you'll have at 2 p.m. He downloads peace for the storm you don't even see coming yet. The chaos will always be there. The world will always be loud. But God is waiting in the space before it all begins, offering you exactly what you need to navigate it with supernatural grace. Most people live their entire lives in reaction mode. Something happens and they respond. Someone says something and they react. A problem appears and they scramble. They're like chess players who only move after their opponent moves. Always defensive, never strategic, never 2 steps ahead. But here's the truth: God doesn't operate in reaction mode. He's always ahead. He sees the entire game before the first move is made. And when you meet Him first thing in the morning, you're tapping into that perspective. You're downloading His strategy before the enemy even makes his move. Calibration is a military term. Pilots calibrate their instruments before takeoff to ensure they're aligned with true north. If the calibration is off by even 1 degree, they could miss their destination by hundreds of miles. Your morning time with God is your calibration. It aligns your thoughts, your emotions, and your decisions with heaven's frequency. Without it, you might be working hard, praying hard, even believing hard, but you're slightly off course. And slightly off over time becomes completely lost. When you're calibrated with heaven, you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is God showing me through this?" You stop being a victim of circumstances and become a co-creator with divine intelligence. You start noticing patterns, doors open that you didn't even knock on. Conversations happen that shift everything. It's not luck, it's alignment. The enemy wants you reactive because reactive people are controllable. But people who move with divine strategy, they're unstoppable. They seem to have wisdom beyond their years, peace beyond their circumstances, and favor that doesn't make logical sense. That's what happens when you stop reacting to life and start creating with heaven's blueprint. The world doesn't just speak, it screams. Every advertisement, every headline, every notification is engineered to grab your attention and keep it. The enemy knows that volume creates urgency, and urgency creates fear, and fear creates control. If he can keep you overwhelmed by the noise, you'll never hear the still, small voice that actually has the answers. God doesn't compete with the noise. He doesn't shout over the chaos. He whispers. not because he's weak, but because he's intimate. Whispers require closeness. You can't hear a whisper from across the room. You have to lean in. And that's exactly what God is inviting you to do every morning. Lean in close enough to hear what the world will never tell you. Those who develop the discipline to hear God's whisper gain something priceless. They walk through life with a map no one else can see. They make decisions that look risky to others, but are actually deeply strategic. They avoid disasters that seemed inevitable. They step into opportunities at the exact right time. People around them wonder, how did they know? The answer is simple. They heard something in the stillness. This isn't mystical nonsense. It's spiritual intelligence. When you hear God's whisper consistently, you start recognizing His voice in the middle of your day. A sudden caution before signing a contract. A strong peace about a person everyone else doubts. A clear about something that looks good on the surface. That's the map. That's the guidance. And it only comes to those who train their ears in the quiet. The world will always be loud, but those who hear God's whisper, they move with a confidence that looks like peace and a wisdom that feels like prophecy. Because in a way, it is.